Thanks to all of you that hit me up on Twitter at @TheJeffSchlegel is the Twitter handle and ask me your NFL questions and such. I'm thankful for it. Let me go ahead and try and answer all of them here in the next 12 to 15 minutes. Who am I getting? Probably closer to 15. Kevin Sheridan kicks us off. Your thoughts on Josh Rosen as a prospect? So far, and again so far, so please do not sit there and hold this to be my ultimate or final definitive opinion on him as a prospect. I think he's somewhat overrated. I think some teams will question his leadership, his durability, his athleticism, his mobility. I've watched enough of him over the previous 2 years that I'm like, I know you call him the Rosen one and everything else, but I don't quite see it yet. Doesn't mean that I won't, but it also doesn't mean that I will. I think he's a little overrated as of how it stands right now. But again, a lot of that is still yet to be determined. Matt House Sammer, where would you rank Matthew Stafford as far as NFL QBs go? Probably in the 8 to 12 category. So not elite, but franchise worthy for sure. I guess it depends on your preference of what you look for in a quarterback, but somewhere between 8 to 12. Jason Martinez, should the Chicago Bears consider trading Kyle Long to an offensive line desperate team and hoping they can get something like a first-round pick for him? If you think you're getting a first-round pick for Kyle Long, you're probably crazy because I believe he's already pushing 30. He's got that big deal, and he plays guard. Teams aren't giving up a first-round pick for him, I wouldn't think. But if they did get a first-round pick for him, I would strongly consider doing it, yes. Should they really consider trading him at this point in time, though? I don't know what the return would be on it. I have to see what the return would be because otherwise I don't see where the benefit would come in trading him. Although he seems to get injured more than more, which is concerning. At this point in time, I don't really see where trading him makes you a better team or really is going to get you that much draft pick currency to justify the potential decrease in level of play of your offensive line to justify it. Abel Herrera, how excited are you to see Jay Cutler this weekend and any predictions? You know what? There is definitely a morbid curiosity to see how Jay Cutler plays in his first game for the Miami Dolphins. Furthermore, there'd be some morbid curiosity, and I think curiosity for others to see what happens with him and Phillip Rivers because they have history going back to Jay's days in Denver. There was a rivalry there. There was a competitive nature there. Some dislike I felt between the two of them. So I'm looking forward to that. As far as predictions, I don't know. I can't wait to find out what happens Sunday. Ian, thoughts on Shaun Kaiser and the Browns quarterback situation going forward? Week 1, I thought he had a couple of good moments. He had some bad. The offensive line could have done a better job protecting him, and sometimes he held onto the ball way too damn long. At least I saw some willingness to try and stretch the field and take some chances, not being totally conservative. I think there's something to work with. You got 15 games to figure it out. This season's all about Shaun Kaiser and his development because if he could develop and he could show you something that indicates he could be that guy long-term, man, that Cleveland Browns organization starts to look a whole lot better, especially with the draft pick currency they have heading into the 2018 draft. They're in a real power position. If not, then they're going to have to get a quarterback. So come back and ask me a few weeks from now and we'll see how I feel. Chet Awesome Laser, best game you've ever seen played by a shitty player. Oh, God. Best game I've ever seen played by a shitty NFL player. One that comes to mind is Cade McNown, opening game of 2000. I think he had like almost 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and like 80-something yards rushing and 1 touchdown. The team lost that day. But, I mean, those are big numbers. So there was a reason for a little bit of hope to think that maybe this guy isn't a total turd Ferguson and he might be that guy. He was terrible. So that could be one example as a Bears fan that I could think of. Some of Grossman's games in 2006, especially I think it was week 2, he had like 280-something yards and 4 touchdown passes. People started talking about being an MVP candidate. That would be a great game by a shitty player. Those would be 2 that I could think of. Jakob Flaber, if the Seahawks disappoint, who would win the NFC West? Would it be the Cardinals or the Rams? Which one? Maybe the Rams? Because usually a lot of years, a first-year head coach takes the team to the playoffs, so this would follow the trend of that with McVay. So maybe them? Maybe? Even though I don't think that's going to happen. Vols fan, top 5 coaching candidates for the next Colts head coach. David Shaw. Hope it's David Shaw. You probably want David Shaw. And if not David Shaw, you better hope it's the right guy. I don't know who else it would be at this point. A little too early for me at this point to start thinking about head coaching candidates for them. But it needs to be somebody that can do great things with Andrew Luck. You need to get a coach that's right for Andrew Luck. Julian, who would you start a franchise with? Derek Carr or Marcus Mariota? Oh, man. I don't feel like you can go that wrong with either one. I still would have a little bit of a preference towards Mariota because I think you can do more things with him from a dual threat standpoint, even though he has some durability concerns. But then Derek Carr is coming off the broken leg. I feel like Carr is the safer option. I'd probably want to swing for the fences a little bit more, so I'd probably go Mariota. But I don't know that you go wrong either way at this point. Harrison asks, should A.J. McCarron get some playing time for the Cincinnati Bengals? If Andy Dalton continues to look like Andy Dalton has the first 2 games of the year and the new offensive coordinator can't get anything more out of him, absolutely. Absolutely. Chase Gosney, what are some of the reasons the 1980 Chicago Bears only won 1 Super Bowl? I think one thing that largely contributes is Jim McMahon couldn't stay healthy. So their franchise guy, who brought a different level to that team when he played, just didn't play nearly enough. And oftentimes was out of the mix come playoff time, which had a big impact on them. No question. 85, he was healthy for the playoffs. They won the Super Bowl. Most of those other years, he wasn't healthy for the playoffs. They didn't get to the Super Bowl, and they didn't win it. I think some of it has to do with Buddy Ryan leaving to go coach the Eagles. I think some of it has to do with Ditka and the team being distracted with other things outside of football, and Ditka losing the locker room at times a little bit. Teams around the league starting to figure out the 46 a little bit more. The passing game was becoming a little more important. So there was a lot of different things that led to it. One of the great disappointments is that Bears team of the 80s won just 1 Super Bowl. Brian Ingemels, is Bill O'Brien the right guy for Houston? You know, the guy's won the division the last 2 years. He's had 3 straight seasons with a winning record, but it's been 9-7 each time. It feels like he's pounced on a bad division. So how good is he really? Man, I don't know. Because it seems like he's really benefited from a defense that he hasn't had a lot to do with. And offensively, it seems like he can't get the quarterback position right, and he just can't get that offense right. I'm not a big Bill O'Brien guy. I think it all comes down to, will he adjust to Deshaun Watson, or will he try to get Deshaun Watson to adjust to him? If he tries to get Deshaun Watson to adjust to him, then he is not the right guy for Houston. If he adjusts to Deshaun Watson and builds his offense around Deshaun Watson the way good coaches do it, then I think he may be the right guy for Houston. I just don't know yet. Jake Richardson, thoughts on TJ Watt's Week 1 performance and your future expectations the rest of his rookie year? He looked really, really good Week 1. A couple of sacks. I think an interception too, didn't he have? He looked good. So maybe he has 8 to 10 sacks this year. Maybe he is a difference maker on that Steelers defense. If I'm a Steelers fan, I'm a little bit excited based off of what I saw out of him in Week 1. That's for damn sure. Could that have just been because he was against the Browns? That could be, but it's a good start. Barima Aduse, based off of Week 1, will 9-7 win the NFC West? I don't believe so. No, I do not think so. Not at this point. Let's not dismiss Seattle too greatly because they still played a good Green Bay Packers team with a Hall of Fame quarterback on the road Week 1. So how much are you going to bury him for that performance, even though the performance wasn't very good? MDC, when will the Bears start Mitchell Trubisky? If John Fox has his druthers, he won't start him at all this year. But I don't think that's realistic. I think you're going to get past the 4th game, somewhere between the 4th to 6th game of the season, where Glennon either gets hurt or he's ineffective, and they realize that Glennon's lack of mobility is a factor, that they're going to need a spark, and that's when they probably go to Trubisky. So I think it's still going to be at least another month. Real Oba, should the Ravens consider drafting Joe Flacco's successor in next year's draft? You could consider it. I don't know how strongly you need to consider it at this point. I'd be more concerned about building up the offense around him than trying to replace him at this point. That would be my thought. Rob Lewis, who are the QBs that you want for 1 game, 1 season, and the next 10 years? The quarterback I want for one game is Tom Brady. He's got the 5 rings that validates that. The quarterback that I want for one season is Aaron Rodgers because I believe he's the best quarterback in the game. The next 10 years. Next 10 years. I might go Mariota. I could understand if people said Carr. I could still understand if people said a healthy Andrew Luck. I could understand if people say Russell Wilson. I could understand if maybe they said Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz. I think that's about personal taste and up to interpretation. But it'd probably be Mariota for me. And the Shablagoosh closes us out by asking, is Ty Montgomery a good enough running back for the Packers to win it all with him as their lead runner? Because of Aaron Rodgers and the number of weapons you have on the offensive side of the ball, I think you could get by with Ty Montgomery as your featured back. I still feel like they may have made a mistake not drafting Dalvin Cook at the tail end portion of round 1 to be their featured back. Because you imagine that offense with Dalvin Cook in it? Holy Christ. But I think he could be. Because ultimately, if the corner play doesn't get better, it's not going to matter who is that running back anyways. So there you go. That's this Q&A. I'll be back next week with another one, and I'll let you know when that time comes to start submitting your questions. Make sure you come back here in the next day or two and check out my Week 2 Bears recap after their game with the Buccaneers, and then my Week 2 NFL recap and all of that. Check out my picks for the week. Week 1, I went 12-3 picking the winners and 10-5 versus the spread, so it was a good start to the season. Let's see how I do in week number 2. Thanks for your questions. Remember, I'm the most underrated sports talker on YouTube. Let everybody know it, damn it. I'm out of here.